Okay, sweetie, it's time to go to bed.
Wait, Mom, can you tell me the story of the American Revolution?
But sweetie, we already know what happened.
But what caused all the conflict between the colonists and the Great Britain?
That's a good question, my dear. Well, there are three main reasons: taxation without representation, the Stamp Act, and the Quartering Act.
Ooh, what's that?
Well, during the time, the American colonists were under the control of the British Parliament. Colonists did not have any direct representation in the British Parliament that would later lead to huge conflicts between the American colonists and King George III. The colonists were upset at the fact that the new laws and taxes were being made, and the colonists did not have a chance to put any input on the laws. Taxation without representation was a slogan that they used to say during the 1750s and 60s. Not only was this illegal under the English Bill of Rights, 1689, but also denied the colonists their rights as Englishmen, and this made the colonies very mad.
What's another reason, Mom?
The Stamp Act, sweetie.
Does that have to do with stamps?
Well, not exactly. The Stamp Act was passed by the British Parliament on March 22, 1765. The Stamp Act held that there would be a tax on every piece of printed paper the American colonists used, such as playing cards, licenses, and legal documents. The colonists were not as upset with paying the tax rather than the standards that the Stamp Act held for American colonists, so they began to protest and have small uprisings. Many colonists relied on the adoption of Patrick Henry's Stamp Act resolves, a resolve that declared that the Americans possessed the same rights as the British, therefore having the right to be taxed only by their own representatives.
Tell me more, Mom.
Let's not forget the Quartering Act.
Does it have to do with quarters?
Of course not, sweetie. The Quartering Act of 1765 required colonists to provide food, fuel, and transportation, plus housing for the British soldiers. The colonists were angry because they were not represented in the Parliament who passed the act.
Why? I would never want a creepy soldier in my house.
Parliament passed this act. Also, because of the expensive cost of the 7 Years' War, Britain thought that the colonies should pay their share for the British soldiers who were there to protect the colonies. They thought that they were losing control of their American colonies, so they sent in the troops to settle everyone from the riots and basically keep an eye on them and take back control.
But that can't be the end of the story, can it? I want to know the end.
Okay. The ending has to do with three very important documents: the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and the Constitution. One of the most important documents in the history of the U.S. is the Declaration of Independence, containing the ideal goals of our nation and why they wanted to break free from Britain and the Crown. It was made for the king, colonists, and the world, announcing the creation of a new country, declaring a complete break between Britain and its king, claiming the power of an independent country. It changed society in many ways, too. It gave birth into what is now the United States, including our freedoms, and allowed the Revolutionary War to be seen as a war between two separate countries. This also gave the colonists something to fight for, and it inspired them. Plus, many other countries followed the Americans' lead in becoming independent. The Declaration of Independence excluded many colonists. While it declared that all men are created equal, women and enslaved Africans were still excluded.
What about the Bill of Rights?
Well, the Bill of Rights is seen as a summary of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and what it stands for. It was named after the first 10 amendments of the U.S. The Bill of Rights offered specific rights and laws, such as freedom of speech, press, religion, etc. The first 10 amendments are truly an expansion of what the signers of the Declaration of Independence believed in. The Bill of Rights restricts the government's power, and it guarantees personal freedoms. This would safeguard individual liberties and these rights and apply to all citizens.
What about the minority?
Well, it wasn't until later on that the minority was also applied into the Bill of Rights, and then everyone was happy. Hey! Okay, let's talk about the Constitution, which is an amendable document that is the basis of government. The Constitution describes the different roles and responsibilities in the government, whether it's national, state, or local government. Also, the different branches were included as well, such as judicial, executive, and legislative. It also includes checks and balances. Plus, we could add amendments in the future. This made it clear that we, the people, were in charge, and that the government's power comes from the consent of the people. Before the Constitution, the central government had very little power because of the central government couldn't do anything, such as create taxes or enforce any laws. And without these taxes, the government couldn't even raise an army to protect people. Women and slaves, including men who didn't own property, didn't really apply. And the reason why was because these rich men did not want to give up their power. But it wasn't until later that these important issues were discussed and changed to benefit everyone. Once again.
Thank you, Mom. I love you.
I love you too, sweetie. Good night.
Good night.